Hi everyone! In this video, I'm going to share with you about the implementation of inclusive education in the classroom. It includes the types of inclusion, DepEd programs, and inclusive education practices in the classroom. Inclusive classrooms not only benefit children with disabilities, they also offer valuable learning experiences to those without disabilities. When educators create inclusive classrooms, they adapt lessons and materials to suit all ways of learning, set a positive example of compassion and acceptance, and provide opportunities for children to learn and grow. There are three types of inclusion. First is the full inclusion, where there are no boundaries and distinctions between general education and special education. A child with special needs is taught alongside the rest of the children, and everyone receives the same education regardless of handicap or limitations. Second is the partial inclusion, in which children with special needs are given the opportunity to participate in a regular classroom setting for up to half day. The practice of partial inclusion gives children the chance to be part of a normal environment next to their peers, while support and assistance are provided should it be needed. And the third is mainstreaming, where students with disabilities start in a separate classroom or the self-contained classroom and transition into the regular classroom. In connection to inclusive education, there are different programs in the Philippines that are implemented by the Department of Education. First is the multi-grade. This funding support for multi-grade classroom aims to improve the teacher's teaching competence and the learning performance of the pupils in multi-grade schools where the enrollment does not warrant the organization of monograde classes. Next is the SPED. This special education program specifically aims to enhance access and upgrade the quality of SPED programs and education services directed towards all recognized SPED centers for elementary and secondary schools with classes for learners with special needs. Through the program, support funds are provided to the field to ensure the inclusion of learners with special education needs into the school system by providing adequate and appropriate support mechanisms and accommodations that would cater to their unique conditions and needs. IPED. The Indigenous Peoples Education Program is DepEd's response to the right of indigenous people to basic education that is responsive to their context, respects their identities, and promotes their indigenous knowledge, skills, and other aspects of their cultural heritage. Additionally, the IPED program supports the realization of the K-12 basic education curriculum, which subscribes to the standards and principles that are inclusive, culture-sensitive, and flexible enough to enable and allow schools to localize, indigenize, and enhance based on the community's educational and social context. Madrasa Education Program. Madrasa Education Program aims to provide Muslim learners with appropriate and relevant educational opportunities while recognizing their cultural context and unique purposes for participating in the K-12 program offerings. This program also intends to integrate content and competencies in the curriculum which are relevant and of interest to Muslim learners. Flexible learning options. A program aimed at providing an alternative path of learning for the out-of-school youth and adult who are literate but have not completed 10 years of basic education as mandated by the Philippine Constitution. Through this program, school dropouts will be able to complete elementary and secondary education outside the formal system. What are the things that we can do in our classrooms to promote inclusive education? First is facilitating cooperative learning. We can group our students into small groups of 2 to 4 students of mixed abilities and set clear learning goals. In this way, we can easily monitor their learning, redirect learning tasks, and/or teach when needed. modified assignment and assessment. For the assignment, we can assign shorter tasks and tests, excuse students from certain subjects and tasks, offer individualized assignments, and use a different grading system. For assessment, we can allow for the use of calculators and dictionaries during tests, give students extra time to complete tests, grade spelling separate from content, provide students with different and/or individualized test formats, provide students with opportunities for extra credit work, use simplified language when testing, allow for the use of computers when responding to questions, and allow students to dictate their answers to test questions. Vary our instructional formats. We can use the universal design, differentiated instruction, multiple intelligences, use life skills, and scaffold. For curriculum adaptation and environmental accommodation, we can increase the number of breaks, schedule exams at a particular time during the day, and use special lighting. Supplementary material. Allow for the use of sensory instruments and assistive devices, use of audio tape or audiovisual learning materials, large print learning materials, minimal content per line or per page, and use of manipulatives. Here are some scenarios where we can apply inclusive education in our classroom. Scenario 1. A child with a hearing impairment is having difficulty following along in class. What can we do? Sit the child near the front of the classroom where they can see the teacher's face, and use visual aids such as posters or hand gestures to supplement verbal instructions. A preschooler with autism struggles with transitioning from one activity to the next. We can use a visual schedule to help the child know what's coming next, and we can add auditory cues such as a bell or alarm to signal that it's time for a new activity. A child has difficulty participating in fine motor activities. We can add grips to crayons or markers or provide larger-sized writing instruments. And we can use larger lined papers. A child is struggling to verbally communicate their needs. We can use picture cards or other visual aids to help the child express themselves and encourage the use of sign language or assistive communication devices or apps. A preschooler is having trouble sitting still during circle time. We can allow the child to stand or turn the pages of the book as you read, and provide fidget toys or other objects to help the preschooler stay focused. A child feels overwhelmed by all the noise and commotion in the classroom. We can designate a quiet area in the classroom for children to go if they need a break. Suggest noise-blocking headphones that can help mute a noisy environment and help them identify coping strategies when they feel overwhelmed, such as deep breathing exercises. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something that you can use for the effective and successful implementation of inclusive education in your own classrooms. Bye!